Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the absolute whole shebang of watching a movie. And I mean the entire life cycle. From that very first moment you're trying to figure out what to watch, all the way to how you analyze the experience long after the end credits roll. We're going to explore how you can protect your own independent judgment and get the absolute most out of your cinematic journey. So let's kick things off with a massive dilemma. How much should we actually know about a movie before we sit down in the dark? Is it better to just walk into a theater with zero information? It's a fascinating question, right? Because if you go in completely blind, it's like a blank canvas. You get to experience the story exactly as the filmmaker intended, totally free from outside biases, trailers that give away the whole plot, or the opinions of early viewers. But this perfectly highlights the real tension we all face. On one side, you have the pure experience, that dream of sitting down totally untainted by what other people think. But then, well, the financial reality hits. Let's be real. Movie tickets aren't exactly cheap these days. Between the ticket price and having to take out a small mortgage for a bucket of popcorn, very few of us can afford to fly completely blind. We're practically forced to do a little research first just to make sure we aren't wasting our hard-earned cash. Now, because of that financial reality, we have to navigate this research phase. And for most of us, that starts with reading reviews. But before we just blindly trust the critics, we really need to deconstruct the review landscape. Check out this clear distinction between the two very different things any given review actually gives you. On one hand, you have objective, factual information. The film credits, the running time, the MPAA rating, a basic plot summary. Just the facts. But on the other hand, almost all reviews, even the ones cranked out super fast against a newspaper deadline, push these highly subjective value judgments onto us. We're talking about the critic's personal positive or negative opinions of the film's overall worth. And those opinions, they can massively skew our expectations before we've even seen a single frame. The source text actually provides a stark warning about this. It points out that if we take any single review too seriously, we start restricting our own ability to judge the work independently. If we lean too hard on the critics, we actually lose faith in our own judgment. And as this quote perfectly captures, we just end up in a tug-of-war between critical opinions. We literally stop watching the movie for ourselves, and we start watching it through the lens of what somebody else told us to think. Okay, so how do we fix this? To protect your independent judgment, you need a game plan. The absolute best approach is to never place too much faith in just one critic, unless you happen to know their personal tastes inside and out. Instead, read several reviewers' work, and more importantly, select sources representing a variety of philosophical bents. By mixing up the perspectives, you dilute the power of any single subjective opinion, and you keep your own intellectual freedom intact. But reviews are really just one piece of the puzzle. We also have to contend with a massive battle for our attention. The conglomerate hype machine going head-to-head with the organic power of the grapevine. I mean, think about it. Our expectations are constantly getting hammered by these massive sources of influence. You've got ubiquitous TV talk shows with their nonstop celebrity interviews, the massive publicity campaigns churned out by media conglomerates, who, by the way, often own the very studios making the films. And of course, there are the vast resources on the web. Sites like IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes are absolutely fantastic for film literacy for sure, but they also contribute heavily to that pre-release hype that can seriously cloud our judgment before we even buy a ticket. But incredibly, all that corporate hype can actually be bypassed. Take the beautiful emperor penguins from the documentary March of the Penguins. This was an independent film, produced on a minuscule budget with very, very modest commercial expectations. Yet, it became one of the greatest box office successes in history. No way, right? How? Entirely through the grapevine. It was driven completely by oral, word-of-mouth recommendations from friends and family. It just goes to show that a truly engaging film can spread like wildfire and cut right through the noise without a massive conglomerate marketing budget. Okay, so let's fast forward. You've navigated the hype, balanced out the reviews, and the end credits are finally rolling. What now? Well, this is the fun part. It is time to systematically deepen your cinematic response. You can actually deepen your perceptions by following a really simple 3-step progression. Step 1, just savor the personal, emotional response silently. Maybe do this while the credits play or on the quiet ride home. Just let yourself feel it. Step 2, get vocal. Speak out loudly with your friends or family. Share your joy or your total misery, and argue about the film's logical sharpness or stupidity. Then step 3, if the film sparked a cerebral response, record your reactions in a movie journal. Writing down exactly what you saw and felt on both an emotional and intellectual level is genuinely the ultimate way to understand your own experience. And keeping that journal leads directly into a more analytical approach. To truly become an active participant in watching films, to be your own best critic, we're going to walk through 7 specific analytical questions. The very first question to ask yourself is about your own baggage. Did you walk into that theater with strong prejudices against this particular type of film? Like, if you absolutely despise sci-fi, how did that prejudice affect your response? Does the film have special qualities that actually set it apart from others in that genre? Or did your preconceptions totally blind you to its merits? Next up, you have to question your own subjective triggers. How much did specific elements sway your judgment? Maybe you just don't like the lead actor and that colored your entire view of the movie. And crucially, look at how the film treats sensitive material like sex and violence. Ask yourself the really hard question here. Were these scenes aesthetically justified to serve the story, or were they cynically thrown in strictly for box office appeal? Now, these next few questions require you to step back and analyze external factors. This is something we almost never think about. Ask yourself, was your mood, your mental attitude, or your physical condition less than ideal while watching? Because if you had a pounding headache or a terrible day at work, it's absolutely going to affect your reaction. Likewise, what about the physical environment? Was the theater freezing cold? Did the person next to you treat the cinema like their own personal living room and text the whole time? You have to acknowledge how those disruptions negatively influenced your perception of the art itself. You also have to analyze the medium itself. If you watch the movie at home on a TV screen, compare that to a big theater environment. Which scenes felt like they lacked that required intensity of involvement simply because they were shrunk down to fit your living room? Or conversely, in which scenes did the intimate, small screen format actually work perfectly well? The size of the screen fundamentally changes the relationship you have with the imagery. And finally, we arrive at the ultimate question. Looking back at all that pregame hype, all the reviews you consumed, your personal biases, and even your physical environment, what is your own completely independent opinion of the movie? Did it align with the scholarly essays and critical reviews, or did you see something entirely different? By deconstructing this entire process, from that very first review you skimmed to your final written journal entry, you take control of your cinematic journey. So the next time you sit down in the dark as those opening logos appear, I want you to ask yourself, are you just watching the movie the world told you to see, or are you finally ready to discover the film for yourself?